Welcome to June. This is a wild month for both Allison and myself. I'm having a baby, and Allison is moving from Italy back to the UK. And to celebrate all of the big changes and excitement in our lives, we wanted to give something special for all our listeners.
We are offering a 16% discount. That is the maximum Patreon would allow on our annual Patreon supporter memberships. You sign up to be part of the community and you make one payment, then you get all the benefits for a whole year.
The sale runs only for June and all June. It's such a crazy month that we wanted to have a crazy sale to celebrate. You can find all of the details and sign up at patreon.com/Ancestral Kitchen Podcast.
In this podcast, we share and celebrate ancestral food, the things that our great-grandmothers and their great-grandmothers used to do. The wisdom we can gather listening to and reading the stories of their work has the power to change our modern-day food world. In this episode, Andrea and I will put out a call for you to send us your own ancestral stories, and we'll also celebrate people who have collected and treasured this knowledge by sharing 4 beautiful, evocative pieces of food wisdom handpicked by some of our favourite authors. Be prepared to be amazed, enlightened, inspired, and enthused as we are to go out and do all you can to rebuild our individual food stories using this wisdom of our ancestors as the guiding star.
Welcome to the Ancestral Kitchen Podcast with Allison, a European town dweller in central Italy, and Andrea, living on a newly created family farm in Northwest Washington State, USA. Pull up a chair at the table and join us as we talk about eating, cooking, and living with ancient ancestral food wisdom in a modern world kitchen. Good afternoon, Allison.
Good morning to you. Good morning.
I had a glimpse of sunshine before you turned off your video.
Yeah.
When we first got on, I was like, sun? What?
No, seriously, I went out for a walk and the air's cold, but the sun's so hot. It's a really beautiful day.
That's actually a really good combo. That's one of my favorite combos for being outside is when the sun is hot, but the air is cold.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just so perfect. Yeah.
How about
spring
for
and
you?
Fall? It's dark.
Still
it's been raining for 3 years, so I don't know.
I wish you sun.
When Amelia posts in Discord about the
weather in Wales. Yeah.
There, and I'm like, we're the same.
Yep.
No wonder we both want to fry something.
Yeah, just too much rain makes you want to fry. But I want to fry things all the time, and I don't have that much rain.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow. Well, I don't know what to tell you about that. Have you fried anything today?
Yeah, I have actually. I have in the sun. I fried some things.
I did not try to set that up.
Yeah,
All right, tell me what you ate.
Yeah, we had lunch. We picked up a chicken from Flavio at the weekend, and Rob
nice.
chopped it into bits. I don't know, bits. He's not an expert at butchering a chicken, not like you are, but
it's because he's not as interested.
No, you're right.
You know, if he was interested, then it would be like scientifically cut apart.
And we had some of it cooked today in the cast iron pan with some leeks. So the leeks took on all the fat from the chicken as the chicken was frying, which was just delicious. The nicest
that is nice
ever. And then I had 3 pans on the go, so I cooked some red rice for me, and then I also cooked some cauliflower. We got a massive cauliflower on special offer at the local food cooperative.
Yum.
So we've got cauliflower basically all week, but that's all right because I love cauliflower.
Me too.
And I had that, and then Rob had the same, the chicken, the leeks and the cauliflower, but he had rye bread as well, whereas I had the rice instead. It was very, very nice. Very
Do you soak
Delicious.
your rice? I feel like I've asked you this before.
Yeah, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. This rice I didn't soak. I'm finding that I'm eating a lot more kind of rice and stuff because I'm playing around with my diet a little bit at the moment, which has entailed me having to cook a little bit more often because I'm trying to eat low histamine, which means, among other things, which means having all the food as fresh as possible. So for leftovers, the boys can eat leftovers at the moment, but I'm not eating leftovers. So I'm cooking something fresh every day for myself. Hence why we chopped the chicken up into little pieces so we could freeze it.
Oh, I see.
And I could get some back. Because
okay.
usually what I do is just cook the whole chicken and then leave it in the fridge or freeze a little bit of it
You're
afterwards.
Right.
Whereas now
we
we're getting...
said that on the
chicken episode.
On the whole chicken episode, I remember you saying.
Whereas at the moment, I'm taking things out, small portions, cooking them, and then eating them. And it's a bit more logistics because I'm doing separate things for Rob and Gabriel. So I'm having to hold lots of different things in my head at the same time. But because I'm cooking things every day, I'm not always getting around to soaking. So that red rice I didn't soak. But it seems to go down very well. And the chicken was delicious. So I put a bit of breast in there and a bit of leg in there. So we shared it. And with the lovely juicy leeks and the cauliflower and the bread, it was really, really delicious.
I love chicken and rice. I don't know. I feel like it's a perfect pair.
And especially with cauliflower. I don't know. I love cauliflower mixed in with rice.
Oh, me too.
It's often I chop up my cauliflower and just mush it all in with the rice.
Yeah, and I don't know how long cauliflower season is out here, but it doesn't, I don't know. I feel like there's a fairly short window of time when I see cauliflower popping up, and not my own, like from farmers that I buy it from. And I basically get it every time I see it. This is so good.
Yeah. Oh, it's delicious. And it's cooked so many different ways you can do cauliflower. I do love blending up cauliflower with butter in and making kind of cauliflower mash as well. I love it roasted. I like it every which way. And Rob Lemmer used to like it. He always used to say to me, I don't really like cauliflower. And I was like, no, I like cauliflower. And then the last year he's been, you've changed my mind on cauliflower. I really like it now. So he's joined me and Gabriel loving cauliflower, which is nice.
Is the blended cauliflower something on Gaps?
Well, it would be Gaps legal, so I don't see why it wouldn't be.
I hate that word.
Yeah, Gaps legal.
It's legal. It's like, no, don't say it like that. But it's the way we say it. It's the way it's written.
Yeah, I think we probably had blended cauliflower when we did Gaps for sure.
I seem to have a memory of when I hit the stage where I could have the Gaps with ghee.
Yeah.
Or the Gaps and the cauliflower.
Yeah, blending it up with ghee.
I wanted it every day. It's so good. I mean, you can't eat it every day, but
it's really good mixed with other veg as well, like, cauliflower and carrot puree together, or cauliflower and swede.
I've never tried that.
I had a lot of swede when we did Gaps because it grows really quite well in England. We were living in England then. And it's really nice mashed up with other things. I think there's a section in Food in England by Dorothy Hartley where she talks about mashing up vegetables like that. So, Anyway, have you had breakfast? It's nice and early for you. You had breakfast?
Yeah. Despite the fact that I got on our Zoom call half an hour late today, thank you for waiting. I also got up an hour earlier than I planned, and it still wasn't enough time because we have a lamb who was rejected by her mother, and the mother bonded to the other one, but not this one. And Gary found her. We didn't even know the mother had lambed sometime during the night, and Gary came home from work around 1, and he saw this little lamb just wandering in the dark in the rain, and he was like, what is going on? So we don't know if mother kicked her out for some reason, or she wandered off and then mother rejected her because she wandered off. So we don't know which came first, but either way, mother won't take her back. And this is, let me tell you, Allison, I've never been so grateful for the Discord. You know, we always
The
say
patron
we
Discord
learn so
forum.
much in there.
Wow.
Yes, the Discord forum with the patrons. Because we always post things in there. Oh, I'm doing this, that, and the other thing. But I posted about the lamb, and I don't know how to know people's real name.
Yeah, you can't.
On Discord.
Frustrating.
But, and I realized yesterday, I'm just calling her by her Discord name. I should ask what is her real name. Or his. I think it's a female, but I'm not sure. Actually, I don't know. But Nabi, Nabi, popped up. Turns out we have a sheep expert in the room, and they basically saved the lamb's life with their advice. Told me take the lamb's temperature, which I did, and determined she had hypothermia.
Okay.
And little tiny organisms with hypothermia. This is a race against the clock. Yeah. So if I hadn't known to check the temperature, then, which I don't think ever really would have occurred to me, then that lamb surely would have died outside. Because we had her back out with mom and brother, but mom wouldn't let her snuggle up with them. Yeah. So she kept getting cold, and the temperature's well below 50, which, it's like 40. So it's not freezing, but it's too cold for a little newborn lamb. Yeah. So anyway, there's a lamb upstairs. Oh. So I was feeding her this morning, alternating between the bottle, which she's not doing so great on, and then an eyedropper. Feeding her the dropper. Yeah. And thank goodness for having all this frozen colostrum from Elsie. Yeah. Because she got that the first couple days, and now she's on milk. And then Megan, who also works for the podcast and is in the Discord as a patron, she also raises sheep.
Yes,
and
of course.
Her knowledge is really strong too. So they've both basically been holding my hand and telling me what to do, sending me links and things like that.
You know, when we were in Wales, we stayed on a farm, and that farm, most of the animals were sheep. And one day, when we were coming back from a day out, the lady who ran the farm said to Gabriel, "Look, we've been lambing today," and she took us over and she showed us the lambs, and Gabriel held one and named one.
That's cute.
And then the next morning, we saw one that was really weak compared to all the others. And the next morning when she came in to chat to us, she said, "Oh, we were up all night bottle feeding that lamb because the lamb couldn't attach, wasn't able to take milk. So they, it was very weak. You could see how small it was compared to the others. They were up all night doing what you've been doing with that lamb."
It's not uncommon, and sheep often have multiples, after I'm saying this as if I know what I'm talking about, but this is everything I've learned in the past couple of days. So they start with, sometimes lambing, their first will just be one, but then, see, now I feel really awkward because I don't know how to pronounce it. Nabi, I don't know if I'm saying this right. Please correct me. But they've even seen 4.
Gosh.
So picture that.
So even though you fed a lamb, you managed to have breakfast this morning?
Yeah, because I turned the pan on at the same time as I was heating milk in a, I'm using like a kind of heating the milk like you would heat baby milk, like in a bowl of hot water. But I turned around and turned a pan on, and then I threw a couple eggs on. So and then my mom had made us some bread, so I had a piece of bread toasting on the pan at the same time. So then when I finished everything, washed, Gary put the lamb in the bathroom so that she wouldn't like fall down the stairs or something while I'm on the Zoom call. Yeah. And then I just threw it on a plate and came downstairs.
Yum.
So I had eggs.
Good. You've got some food. You got some food.
Long story short, I ate. The lamb ate. It's a good day.
Yeah.
So now speaking of the week, so much has happened this week. But you emailed me this really awesome letter that we got, and I was thinking if you would read that, or a little bit from that today. That I really loved that letter. And we get some really nice letters.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to send us nice letters, that's good.
People do.
If you want to send us mean ones, please don't.
Sometimes people send mean ones, not very often. People do send us nice emails, which are very, very much appreciated, telling us, their experience of the podcast and how it's helped them and how they feel about it. And this one's from Joyce Hooley, who recently emailed me. And she says, I've been listening to the podcast for about 2 years now. And each time I listen, it's like a spiritual journey for me. I connect with the ancestral part because I learned a great deal from my mother and grandmothers about how to create food that was, for lack of a better word, real. I live in Rhode Island, USA, and for the last 10 plus years, I've gradually worked to become supermarket free. And she tells me how she's been putting up food and pickling. And then she goes on to say, I am so grateful to all you and Andrea have shared because you both are very down to earth with your stories. I don't need to do it all at once, and the loaf of bread doesn't have to look like the pictures. Most importantly, though, is that by listening to you, I can now easily do what I do for the women who taught me instead of feeling like I have to pass some type of test. Thank you, Joyce.
Goodness.
It's really wonderful to get feedback like that just, sharing honestly who we are, what we do, our failures, our struggles and our successes is so life affirming. It's really nice to hear. It is.
And it's sometimes, I guess the podcast is sort of one of those virtue is its own reward type things because neither you or I get paid or anything for doing this. Any money we get for the pod we use for the production cost. And it's so hearing when somebody sends a letter and says, look, it is helping. It's really gratifying to hear that because that's what you and I set out to do.
Yeah.
Was, we wanted anybody and everyone to be able to feel like their own kitchen was accessible. And I think those nice letters show us that it is working.
I agree. So yeah.
And once you put yourself out in any sort of media, Instagram or whatever, you sort of also open yourself up to other
to the world.
Sorts of letters too.
To the world.
Yeah. And like you said, sometimes you do get letters. But I like knowing that we're doing what we set out to do. And some people don't like it, and that's okay. But it's really good to hear that.
So if you do like it
that it's helping,
and you want to give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, if you're on Apple Podcasts, then there are instructions in the show notes of how to do that. It's really quite easy. And we love to read them. And if you want to send us an email, we love to read those too. So thank you.
That's true.
If you're into ancestral eating, you'll know that liver is a superfood, full of vitamin A, K, and a whole host of B vitamins, plus many essential minerals. It has an exceptional nutrient profile and is a staple of traditional healthy diets. But it's not always easy to consistently get liver into our lives. Finding a good supply, cooking it so it actually tastes good, and getting all of our family to eat it. These things can be hard, especially when we're busy or travelling. That's where Andrea and I turn to liver capsules. They give us all the benefits of liver without having to worry about the sourcing, the preparation, or the eating. One Earth Health produces organ capsules from 100% grass-fed New Zealand-raised cattle. As a podcast listener, you can get 15% off your first order and 5% off subsequent orders by using the link in our show notes. And each time you order, you'll also be supporting us to continue making this podcast.
So speaking of letters, that's actually kind of what this episode is all about, Allison. And I'm curious to hear your sort of evolution of how you came up with the idea for this episode and what it's all about.
Yeah, that's a good question and a good place to start, I think. I found that, since I've been doing this work and since I've had my website up and been out in the world proclaiming the wonders of ancestral food, that people often contact me and tell me their stories. So mostly it's memories of grandparents So, for example, I remember a guy contacted me from Australia a while back and told me all about chestnuts, because I posted about chestnuts and how his grandma and his granddad used to go and forage for chestnuts, and how they used to process the chestnuts, what they used to make. He remembered like the steam coming off the pot and the smells and the routine and what they used to eat together. Just absolutely wonderful. And I remember when I was investigating lard fried pizzas from Naples, because there's a tradition of pizza dough being immersed, like deep fried in lard in Naples, that mostly has been forgotten. There was a lady from the US whose ancestry was Italian, whose mum used to make a deep fried pizza, and she made it in Crisco, but it came from her mum, who originally made it in lard. So it's basically that recipe taken from the Naples area across to the States when someone emigrated.
Wow.
And that had been passed down through her family. And she had the actual writing, she sent me a picture of the actual piece of paper where her grandma had written down this recipe, which was just wonderful to actually find someone
That's amazing.
who'd eaten and had made that recipe. And I feel like each of those stories, every time someone contacts me and shares something like that with me, it feels incredibly precious to me. Like the food ways that you and I are trying to bring to life in our kitchens, and that we believe in, and that we believe are not only nutritionally the best thing, but also the best thing for the soil and the earth and the planet and our communities. Those used to actually happen, and we are losing the ability to capture that information. So in some parts of the world that aren't so westernized, in some remote places, people are still doing lots of traditional food. And there are some books that have documented that, and there are people who are talking about that. But for us, really, in the modern West, it's all in memories. It's not our grandmas anymore. It's our grandmas' grandmas. You said that before. It's gone beyond grandmas now. And it feels really important to me to try to capture and preserve any stories that exist while we still have the ability to access them. So if people have memories of their grandparents cooking a certain way because their mother, their mother did, so their great grandma did, or if they have stories that have been passed down in their family, or if they have recipe books, scraps of recipes, if they have a recipe that's been passed down that they make now, and then maybe like that other recipe, it was originally lard, but then it got bended into Crisco because of what happened, and now they're making it again with lard. All of that stuff, I want to have a place where that could be captured. So rather than these stories just being told to me and me going, oh, wow, isn't that wonderful? And then I get on with, my day. I wanted to have a repository where that information could be put and remain. And I'm not sure what we might do with it in the future, depending on how it develops. But I'm really, really keen for those stories to be captured, preserved, and saved before we move so much further into the place that we're going, that they've been lost. So I said to Rob, my my tech whiz, what can we do? And he said, well, you could put a form up where you could get people to write in information. So he has created something which you can find at ancestralkitchenpodcast.com, which is our website, /ancestral stories. So if you go to that page, you can go and have a look at it now while you're listening if you're by a computer, or it will be in the show notes if you want to go and have a peek at it later. You will see there's a place to put your information, and then there's a place for you to share, either by writing, so you could write and tell us a memory of your ancestors, of your family that you remember, or you could take a photograph of something. So just like that recipe that was sent to me that was written by a grandmother. You could take a picture of a recipe and send it. Or if you'd rather talk, which, as you know, we like doing, there's an audio option on there. So you can literally press record and record an audio and send it across, which means you don't have to type. And so this really episode is a call out saying, if you have those stories or you know people who have those stories, please go to ancestralkitchenpodcast.com/ancestral stories and let us know about them. I would say we're particularly interested in recipes with traditional fats. So like that lard recipe, processing lard, recipes with tallow, recipes with any pre-industrial fat. We are interested in fermenting recipes. We are interested in traditional ways of butchering and dairying. We are interested in local foraged food and the processing and recipes around that. We're interested in grain processing in particular parts of the world. And we're also interested in traditional comfort foods and what was created by generations back as comfort food.
So all of it.
Yeah, basically
We're
everything.
interested in all of it.
We're interested in everything.
We want to hear it.
So please do, if you think you've got something, even if you think it's just small, even if it's like 2 paragraphs or, 2 sentences even, just hit the record button on there and let us know about it. And then that will be looked after. That memory that you have will go to a place where it's cared about, and hopefully in the future, it'll be something that is just there and able to be shared. Does that answer your question, Andrea? Does that explain everything?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It does. And I feel the Karima who urged us, if anybody listened to, well, of course, everybody, all of you listened to it. Why am I saying this? All of you heard Karima's interview on our podcast. And if you listen towards the end, I can't remember what we asked her, Allison, but she really emphasized the importance of, as you say, capturing these stories. And she said, because yes, there is a lot of traditional food in a lot of places in the world still. And also every time a TV goes in somewhere, then the diet of that area begins to change. Yeah. And Coca-Cola is everywhere. Yeah. And the influences, do start to show up. And she said that if she could tell everybody any one thing, it would be sit down with your elders and please try to preserve these stories before they're gone, because the last generation that saw any form of pre-industrial food is nearing the centenarian stage now.
Yeah.
And then there's people like my grandma, who she's in her 80s, but she was raised by her grandma. And so she has the link, right? So she might say something like, oh, grandma did this with lard. Of course, I will use Crisco. And that's just an illustration of the modern influence. However, she's still giving me the story.
Yeah.
And that is something that you might notice when you speak with elders. And I saw that in Karima's book quite a few times. There was a few ladies who said, oh, well, I use lard because, that's what I grew up on, and see how good it was for me. And then other people say, oh, yeah, of course I don't use lard anymore. That was the good old days. And now we use something else. But they're still giving the stories.
Yeah, indeed. So, that episode is way back in our annals. It was quite an early one. I think it's called...
It's way good, too.
Traditional Italian Foodways or something. Yeah. And the book's called Chewing the Fat. Talking of chewing the fat, so we have, to celebrate the kind of opening of our page where you can leave your stories, we've got 4 pieces of writing from books that we love, which describe ancestral foodways, and we want to read them to you. We have permission to read each of these to you and to talk about them. And the first one is from that book by Karima Moyanoki, which is called Chewing the Fat. And Andrew, you're going to read that for us, aren't you?
I am, and I absolutely love this book. The passage that you and I, the one that you wanted us to read, I have marks and highlights all over it because I love this. I love this chapter. And having just done 2 pigs back to back myself, I mean, not me alone, Gary and I, this chapter was, you better believe it, very present in my mind the whole time. So this is from Chewing the Fat by Karima Moyer-Noki. And it is from, let's see, does she have chapter numbers? No. But it's Luigina's story.
Mm-hmm.
She was born in 1920 in Ovenengo. I don't know if that's pronounced correctly, Allison.
I think it probably is.
Close enough. All right. So again, she was born in 1920. So she would be 103 now.
Yeah.
Many of the women that Karima spoke with passed between now and then, and some are still with us. But let's begin. Our saving grace, like for most families, was raising a pig every year. We used every last bit of that pig, even the bones. If your pig died before slaughter time, it was a terrible tragedy for your family. We made everything out of that pig that you could make. Salumi, prosciutto, head cheese, cotechino, sausage, everything. We made the fat into lard and put it in amphora-like clay jars because all of our cooking was with lard and butter if you happened onto a bit of luck. Everything was preserved. We didn't roast fresh pork and eat the meat. That would just be a foolish waste. At most, we had fresh sausages, and that's only because we finished them off too quick before they had time to dry. It wasn't a problem in my family. Only pigs with something wrong got roasted. We cooked up the lungs and liver of the pig in lard, and then preserved all that together under lard in a vase. The big hunks of fatback were cut into slabs, seasoned, and salt cured to make lardo. We would leave little scraps of meat on the bones, salt cure them, and then pack them into lard. Then, what you do is boil them bones with their little meat scraps still stuck to them and make a nice broth. Just throw in some wild greens you found down the road and you got yourself a soup. We salt cured the ears, snout, face, and tongue. Ears got to be cooked for hours and hours before you can chew them. But sooner or later, they got tender enough. Those are the pieces we stewed all together with cabbage, like a poor version of the cazuela. Folks today don't eat this dish anymore because they think it is too fatty and fattening. Of course, if you go stuffing yourself like folks do today, anything's going to make you fat. But when you're eating tiny portions and trying to make every bite last, you don't get fat. Food then was more about what we didn't get to eat than what we ate. We filled up on vegetables and polenta because the other things you could only get a taste of. Certain things like salami were rationed out in small portions. More for the boys and men because they needed more meat than girls and women. Salami was a Sunday treat. Anyway, at least we didn't have to share our pig with a padrone. He let us keep the whole thing for ourselves. The blood cake ritual was real important when you killed your pig. Everybody's got their own tradition, but the way we did it round our parts was to cook the blood with salt and cinnamon till it got stiff. Then you put the thickened mass into a mold, turned solid. Then we divided it with the 4 other families at our kashina. One by one, when the other 4 families butchered their pig, they would give us some of their blood cake. So we all had to agree on when to butcher our pigs. There weren't no way to keep it, no refrigerator, so your timing had to be right to get blood cake to everybody without there being too much in it going off. You never waste nothing, that's food.
I was just reading that in the book as you were reading out. And it's just amazing the work and the economy and the busyness that must have been. And I imagine everyone in the house was involved in it. I mean, there's just so much to do. And the idea that they're sharing between different families. So, the blood cake has to be eaten straight away. And so you give a bit to your family. And then when they do their pig, they give a bit to you. That's such a...
I love it.
The community focus and the no wastage. I literally no wastage at all. And it's too easy for us to think of pork as, like she was saying, you roast up the pork fresh. But to hear her say, we didn't eat fresh pork apart from perhaps some sausages. The rest of the pork was just preserved for the rest of the year. It's
right.
amazing.
Just trying to get those, pork can be very calorie dense. So trying to get those calories to stretch across your family, across the whole year. That's amazing. And the level of detail that she remembered is quite impressive.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how many years later this was, 70 plus years later. But, you know, they must have done it many times. And it was something that left an impression on her.
Yeah, I like the bit where she said the lungs and the liver, we cooked them up and then we put them under lard. So it sounds like, you know, I mean, I have cooked lungs and liver of pig at different times, but I've never preserved offal like that. You know, I've never put that under lard. I've always eaten offal straight away. So that was quite a surprise that they're literally cooking up offal and then making it like potted meat, literally covering it in fat and then without a fridge. I mean, that.
Yeah. And didn't it kind of sound like rillettes when she said that
completely.
They cooked the bones under fat with salt?
Yeah.
And that's what that made me think of too.
And then I'm assuming you pick off the meat and then, it's like the rillettes that
it sounded like they put the whole thing under fat.
The bones as well.
Bones and all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just wonderful.
Yeah, I really like that chapter. I mean, the whole chapter is beautiful. So, and there's, that book. I love that book.
We recommend that book. I can't remember if it's in our bookstore. We do have a bookstore, one in the US.
Oh, I don't remember.
I don't know whether this book is in there. If we can put it in there, then it will be in there. So you could go and have a look. Otherwise, I think you can get it kind of anywhere.
Just find it somehow.
Yeah.
Find it. Get it. Read it. When I first heard Allison talking about boza, the fermented drink made of millet that's a household name in Turkey, I felt as if I was being transported back to a bazaar in the Ottoman Empire or traveling the Silk Road on the back of a camel, and I knew I wanted to taste it. Boza is fizzy, sweet, tart, and it's full of probiotics. You can drop it into your smoothies, spoon it on top of your breakfast, or drink it in the traditional way they still do in Istanbul, topped with cinnamon and toasted chickpeas. Fermented millet drinks were first made in that region of Europe in the 8th century BC, and as with all of Allison's courses, she's gone above and beyond in research and experimentation and testing on Rob and Gabe, and given us an easy way to recreate the goodness in our own homes. If you'd like a fun and tasty way to get more probiotics into your life, bring her into your kitchen and have her walk you through how to bring this ancestral, dairy-free, gluten-free fermentation recipe with her amazing Boza video course. Head to www.ancestralkitchen.com/Boza, BOZA, to check out the video course. And happy fermentation. Now, you have a book that I want, but I don't have.
Yeah.
But you've told me about this book so many times.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited that you got permission to read.
I've had this quite a while, this book. I think I got it just when I moved to Italy the second time. So 5 years ago. And it's by a woman called Patience Gray, who really was an amazing woman. When you read about her life, and she lived in various places around Europe and cooked in lots and lots of different kitchens, some of them tiny and very basic with no running water. And she wrote, and she got involved in communities, tiny, small hilltop communities and communities in the very south of Italy. And she wrote about how they lived and what they ate. And there's a wonderful description of making bottled tomato sauce. The book's called Honey from a Weed, and if you do have a copy and you want to listen along, it's page 319 in the edition that I have. And the section's titled La Salsa, bottled tomato sauce, and it describes the making of that bottled tomato sauce. Okay, so here goes. The sauce that many Apulian householders prepare for winter is made on a large scale, involving the whole family and at least 100 kilos of Leccese tomatoes grown for this purpose, but often far more. In the first weeks of July, the ripening tomatoes are picked at dawn with their short stems, then laid out in a covered space to ripen further, a garage, a spare room, or winemaking place. During this time, elegant old liqueur bottles or mineral water bottles are assembled, washed, laid upside down to drain in the hottest sun. Cauldrons are scoured. Glazed earthenware vats are washed and turned upside down. Firewood, olive, is prepared. Corks or metal caps lined up. The tomato machine examined. Herbs gathered. Packets of sea salt acquired. One day at 6 a.m, the operation begins. While the man of the house prepares the outdoor fires and sets the iron tripods, the women, crouching over a deep scarlet sea of tomatoes on the floor, at speed remove the stalks and carry basins of fruit to the now filled vat, pouring them in, then lightly squeezing the tomatoes underwater to release some of the seeds and some of their acid, and rapidly fill the cauldrons. Into each cauldron, half a purple onion is sliced up, some sprigs of thyme and rosemary are added, and a handful of salt, together with a cup of water. The man then bears the cauldrons away and sets them on the fires, putting on their lids. While the contents of the cauldrons cook, every domestic vessel is being filled with more slightly crushed tomatoes taken from the water vat. The cauldrons are stirred from time to time, and once they come to the boil, cooked 10 minutes till the contents acquire a deeper colour and are soft. Near the fire is a large tin bath, with over it a beautiful circular rush mat, a kind of sieve. The man, protecting his hands with rags, pours the contents of the first cauldron onto the rush mat. The juice runs through and a dense tomato mush remains. The mush is carefully poured into another earthenware crock, placed on a table to which the tomato separating machine has been affixed, under a tree. By now, it is 8 o'clock and already hot. Someone starts putting the tomatoes into the top of the machine with a cup, and someone else winds the handle and prods. The seeds and skins spill out onto a plate on one side, and the sauce pours into an earthenware vessel on the other. Meanwhile, ever new cauldrons are being boiled up. Some of the liqueur of the last cauldron can be added if the sauce is too thick. The aim is to get a sauce which is very dense, but not so dense that once in the bottle it will refuse to come out. By this time, everyone is covered with tomato juice, and their hands, which have been yellow, turn black, the effect of the acid. In the end, there is a huge vat of dense sauce on the one hand, and a mountain of skins and seeds on the other. The seeds released into the water vat are removed with a fine sieve and dried in the sun against next year's planting, when they will be sown on heat in February, covered with plastic sheets. What do you think of that, Andrea? I don't know if you've heard that before.
I love that. I love that. I'm when she said that the women are removing the stems at speed.
Yeah.
I could only imagine. I was thinking of, the guys making the oat cakes in 2 seconds or whatever. And I was just thinking, yeah, exactly. Their hands must have been flying, and I could just see it. I felt like, did you ever read Enchanted April?
No, I haven't.
Well, I'm stunned that you, a Britisher who moved to Italy, did not read a book about British people going to Italy. But it felt like that, like not dreamy, but so all the senses were involved in the story. That the acid and this, and then the smell, and then the guy with the cloths so he doesn't burn his hands, and the colorful crimson piles. That's over 200 pounds of tomatoes. That's a lot.
It's a lot. I think,
and then the way they save the seeds.
I love that, and I love that. I mean, it is beautiful writing. Really, really beautiful. Like you said, it engages all the senses. I love the idea that, it is so hot there because it's right down in Puglia, the south of Italy. And they're starting at 6 a.m. because obviously, the tomatoes are ripe, are ready to be picked in the summer, and it's really, really hot. And so they're starting at 6. And then when they get to the point where they're separating using the machine, they put it under a tree because it's 8 o'clock in the morning. And yet it is still so hot that there's no way you're going to stand anywhere other than under a tree preparing tomatoes outside. I like
What's
that.
that old Italian movie? I only mainly remember the scene where they were so hot. They had a watermelon and they were under a tree, rubbing it all over themselves because they were so hot.
I don't know.
But yeah. I'm sure when they said they were straining the first pot by 8 o'clock, I thought, they were working at speed.
That's serious work, isn't it?
Very
to do all
fast.
that in a couple of hours. And again, it's like the reading from Karima. It's the whole family involved. Just like
the man of the house,
when
the women,
when we've interviewed Naomi from Slovakia, and she's talked about the pig butchering. That's an episode we've got back in the annals as well. Everyone's involved. You can imagine the kids are involved as well. They're doing something, and the auntie and the sisters and the dads.
Yeah, I was thinking the kids are probably. I know exactly what my kids would be doing. You're bringing firewood. Now get to it.
Yeah.
They have to keep that fire going. It's not a stove that they can switch on and off. And when we do our butcherings out here, it's just Gary and I as adults, and the kids have to help us. I mean, we rely on their help. They work the entire time. They work as long as we do.
Yeah.
And there is something for everyone. Even the littlest one can be doing something, even if it's not directly butchering, although sometimes it is. But there's always things that need to be done. And we don't even have a fire to maintain or something.
Yeah.
So I can totally see that.
I think there is another thing that I liked in it, which just seems like ancestral wisdom to me, because maybe I'm looking for that in it. But, they've got the source at the end of the process. They've got the source on one hand, and it says a mountain of skins and seeds on the other.
Yeah.
And you said, they're saving the seeds.
I thought of Gabriel.
Well, the tomatoes are a food that has lectins in it, which are plant defences, which sometimes some people have problems digesting. And in tomatoes, the lectin chemicals, which are to, save the fruit, are concentrated in the skin and the seeds. And so by removing the skin and the seeds and just using the rest of the tomato, you are potentially rendering that tomato more mineral dense, because it's not going to potentially have problems with digestion or absorption, because you're taking out the parts that have the lectins in them. So I find that really interesting, that these communities could have used the skins and the seeds if they'd wanted to. And you can buy tomato passata, as it's called here, which has skins and seeds in it. It's usually called polpa, not passata.
Same here.
But it seems like traditionally that wasn't done. It was a smooth sauce, which didn't have those bits in.
It does. And I think that's really interesting because of what the last line I read from Karima's, you don't waste nothing, that's food.
Yeah.
And to them, it was so important that this portion was removed from the fruit.
Yeah.
I don't know what they did with it. Maybe
it doesn't say.
It doesn't say. I can think of a number of things they could have done with it, though, from an agricultural standpoint, if they wanted to use it as fertilizer or something.
Yeah.
But they don't say. But that's one interesting thing about animals. There's, other than maybe some glands, you can pretty much eat everything off an animal.
Yeah, well, people do eat the skins of tomatoes, don't they? It's just, it's interesting that there's that wisdom. When I found out about lectins in tomatoes, I kind of tied it into that story, and I thought, wow, interesting.
No, and is the whole book like that?
It's not like that all the time. There's recipes in the book as well, lots of recipes, some of which I've made, and there's descriptions of meetings that she's had with the communities that she's living in. So, how she's gone down to the bar one day and this has happened, or a song that was passed on by some man, or the way that they celebrate Christmas, for example, descriptions of her working with women and men in the, I want to get the book now, which is over here, descriptions of her working with, people who she's met and her travels. And it's divided into sections based on the type of food. So, there's a section on a pig, there's a section on fungi, there's a section on polenta, there's a section on vegetables, weeds.
Oh.
There's lots. It's a really engaging read because it's not just, recipe. It's sort of, you can dive in and you might have a recipe, or you might be finding out about a particular building or a particular festival or a particular way of hunting, that kind of thing.
Huh.
It's
reading those stories feels, for me, they feel so, I'm sure listeners, there's many who feel the same as this. And I know you have felt this too. Sometimes it feels a little bit isolating. I'm the only person I know who's doing this, or, maybe I know two of them, but they live in a different country, or they're far away or something. And I hate to say it, but sometimes one can feel a little sorry for oneself.
Yeah.
I'm so tired. This is so hard. And then I read those stories and I think, I don't think I was born in the wrong time or place or anything like that. I just think, oh, look, I'm not the only one. And there was thousands, millions of people working 10 times harder than this, under much worse circumstances. And I don't know why that's comforting, but it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Because we start their day sounds like our processing days. We're up, usually by 4, because we have to do regular chores first and making breakfast and starting as early as you can. And then by the time the sun comes up, you're like, wow, look how much we've already got done. And it's just starting to get light out. And it does feel like that. Everybody involved. And I just love that. I really need to get myself that book then.
It's a beautiful read.
It's just
really
beautiful.
Is. And it's something, that I've moved house so much that a lot of books have fallen by the wayside, but that one won't. That one's on my shelf. It's a keeper.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Keeper.
Now, there's another book you have that you sent me a passage from. I actually have this book coming in the mail, but it's not here yet. And so I'm going to be reading these off the silver screen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to maximize the font a little bit.
Do.
But this book is called Transylvanian Cuisine by Paul Covey. And you saw this book last year when you went to Wales, right?
Yes. When we were in Wales last summer, we visited a friend who I made on Instagram, Annie, who is Kitchen Counterculture on Instagram. Shout out for her. And she has an incredible collection of cookbooks. I have never seen anything like it in my life.
Insane.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. And this was one of them. And when I saw Transylvanian, I thought, this is going to be some lard and cabbage and pork. I want to read this book. And so I did. There's a section that I thought was really apt and would be really wonderful to hear you read us today.
Yeah. Okay. Now so tell me a little bit about the context of of the book. Sorry, I looked at the word soup. This chapter is called Transylvanian Sunday Soup, and it says it's by Tibor Balint. Mm-hmm. So is this book a collection, kind of like Karina's?
So, no, it's not. What it is it's a collection of recipes put together by Paul Covey, and those are in, sections again. So the section I went to straight away was the offal section, and then I'm looking at the pork section and the lard section.
Of course.
And there are bread recipes in there, there are vegetable recipes in there. Then at the end, there's a collection of stories, which must have been people that he encountered on his research and travels. And there I think there are about 10 kind of first-hand reports which people must have sent him, but pretty much like the sort of stories we're looking for people to submit to us. And I guess he just thought they were so beautiful and talked about various aspects of Transylvanian cuisine firsthand that he wanted to include them at the end. And this is one of those.
Wow. So it is a lot like what we're doing then. He started with collecting the stories and then or the recipes and was encountering. I mean, the recipe doesn't come without the background. That's the thing about ancestral food, is none of it exists. It wasn't generated by AI. It was the result of like a pattern of living or a plant that grew outside.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to read this, and we're going to travel to Romania for a minute here. All right, Transylvanian Sunday Soup. And this story is by, I don't know how to say these names, but Tibor Balint. All right. I recall the sweet, clanging ring of the noontime luncheon bell that foretold the Sunday soup with its golden dumplings. Although my memory of that fragrant meat soup is fading, just thinking about it arouses joy and hope in me about the future of the world. This soup wasn't merely food. It was a symbol, a solemn ceremony, an appeasing sacrifice in the midst of steaming frankincense, myrrh, and other scented spices. Its aroma seeped out to the courtyard, and from there to the garden, and from the garden farther into the world, proclaiming that a large but modest family had sanctified the seventh day as its deserved day of rest according to the law. Sundays seemed more dazzling in those days, maybe because we could sleep longer, and by the time we opened our eyes, the room was full of light. This light was given a rainbow look by the balmy, simmering consommé, which, like a quiet psalm, praised existence and human initiative. I must confess that I still feel the weekday cooking of this soup to be profane. For me, it needs a fitting occasion, a holiday. Only in a state of tranquility and some sort of expectant devotion and reverence does it smell so heavenly. Only in authentic surroundings, among people who are convinced that tastes and smells lead us to a higher knowledge and appreciation of our existence and nurture humanity and good intentions. After all, it's unthinkable that someone joyfully spooning up Transylvanian meat soup should not wish similar gourmet delights for the whole world. Even the meat brought home from the butcher has a special effect on us. Beautiful pieces of rump steak, spare ribs, topside, and shin with the poorest bones, and the freshly plucked, yellow-skinned hen. You look at this still life with a primeval instinct and an artist's excitement, and searching for edibles in things of beauty. You have to keep greed at bay while noticing the shape of the meat, its color and alluring texture, and luxuriating in the crossbone with gristle that glistens like a pearl. At first, only the serious and promising fragrance of the various meats wafts from the kitchen, a kind of basic broth that as yet is unaware of the cunning collusion from the imminent addition of spices and vegetables that preserve the tasty salts, secret minerals, and flavors of the earth. After the vegetables have been added, however, when the meat is almost soft and a steaming vapor permeates all ingredients, an uplifting process begins, the symphony of aromas. I could never resist the temptation of stealing a peek into the kettle of secrets, of marveling at the pieces of meat bathing in shimmering melted gold, with brilliant reddish carrots and sticks of silvery parsnip embraced in it like giant jewels. I watched as the peppercorns, like tiny heads of black-haired children, popped up and bobbed down again, and the lovely meat flowed like a veil. A delicacy for gourmets. In the pinkish bay of mushrooms, new flavors dissolved and set out on the sea of savors. The green pepper glimmered beside a piece of Savoy cabbage and a blood-red tomato, and the hen had scattered glittering 18-karat coins around itself. The fat. As the steamy, atomized flavors escaped from under the raised lid, it felt as if a fleeting spring shower had crossed some exotic forest. The magic of Mother Nature had captured me. Oh, Sunday soup, let the sweet and clanging ring of the semolina dumplings, the never silenced voice of my homeland, lull us forever and ever.
Just makes you smile, doesn't it? You got to smile.
It does. Oh, yeah.
I think that's a really beautiful piece of writing.
He or she that wrote it. I don't know, but again, the level of the detail in the memory. I challenge anybody to recall boxed macaroni and cheese with this kind of poetic.
Yeah, completely. And,
I mean,
and again, the senses, all of the senses, you know.
Every sense. I mean,
and how many senses
like
are involved in boxed macaroni and cheese? You know, exactly. It's
none, actually.
It's a completely different thing. A completely different thing. I wrote down lots of things.
I like the association of the time. You know, that it was on Sunday, a holy day or a holiday, as we say it, and the fact that they feel like it's you know, kind of blasphemous to eat it on a different day than Sunday, because it is so strongly associated with the memory of Sunday.
Yeah.
Which I know you and I have talked about that, about with the holiday foods being so specifically associated with a specific time. And the fact that this was something that occurred during you know, this isn't like Easter or something. This is Sunday.
As a precious day, you know, because like he said,
yes.
you know, you woke up and there was a light in the room, and that just doesn't happen. And I felt an association with that as you read that, you know, because every day of the week, basically, we're up when it's dark. And I know the difference I feel when I'm in bed and I'm kind of coming to and it's light. I'm like, oh my gosh, the room's light. That feels so luxurious, you know, like I'm lying in, and it, you know, they must have been working so hard, as we've talked about with earlier excerpts we read, during the rest of the week, that Sunday was precious religious-wise, but also precious rest-wise. You know, it had all of those things encapsulated in, and that soup became a symbol of it. And I love the fact that the person said, I'm going to say he said at the beginning that, you know, whenever he thinks on that soup now, it fills him with joy and hope, I think you said. And the idea that we create these food memories and yet they can change our outlook and they're potentially, therefore, our actions in, you know, decades later, because they're so precious and the memory of them is so precious that it can change our state of being. I think that's amazing.
Well, Alison, look at this. I just looked real quick to see, is Tibor a male or female name? And it's a masculine Hungarian given name.
Okay.
And it's from the Latin Tiberius. It's a Slavic word, and it means sacred place. That's about as poetic as it could get for this. I
think the writing is very, very beautiful. I don't know, you know, obviously it sounds like English was his second language, and I'm assuming that was written in English because there's no note of a translator at all. So it's beautifully written.
It's hard to give verbal experiences of spices.
Yeah.
That's a challenge. And he did it. He captured it here. It made me really want to stand next to him and lift that lid and see what that memory smells like. And it when he said the memory was fading, but he could still remember the association with it. I thought of Gabriel and my kids and how you and I have discussed between each other that we want them to have really positive associations with food. And some people can, you know, if you don't participate in the processed food culture, people can accuse you of not letting your kids have enjoyment. But then I read something like this and I think, oh, but the pleasure is so much deeper than, you know, getting a salt and sugar hit on a center in your brain. The pleasure is something that he and many of the women in Karima's book say this too, that they remember very distinctly the pleasure that came with it.
Yeah. For a moment then
do you notice he said
Go on.
What?
No, you go.
I was going to say, he said the freshly plucked chicken. So I wondered if it was their own chicken. The other things he said came from the butcher. He didn't really say if the chicken did or did not. Maybe it did. It was kind of in the same sentence.
I liked his 18-carat coins of gold in the soup, which was the fat from the chicken. I like that. And I liked his use of... when he was talking about the spices, he said there was a cunning collusion going on, like the spices were colluding to change the soup. Yes. I thought that was wonderful.
Yes.
Really, really.
And
beautiful.
With the 18-carat coins, and then you said also about the rest, those things made me think, in our day, something you and I have both experienced is that again, as mentioned in the Luigino's story from Karima's book, that when you have too much, those are actually health hazards. But to him, the fat and the rest were very, very special because they were needed.
Yeah.
And that is kind of where you want to be, where your body is needing rest. Like when you were telling me how many walking like 7 miles a day or something in Wales.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that rest felt much more appealing than when you haven't hardly moved all day.
Yeah.
And then the same with the fat, when you aren't eating in a nonstop sort of flow, as is the Western way, where we never experience hunger, not even during a day between meals, then when you encounter the fat and you're hungry for it, it just satisfies you.
Completely. Okay, should we go on to our last one, number 4?
Yeah, let's read it.
Be here forever. So this
Actually, you read it.
Yeah, this one is a book that I have called Beyond the North Wind by the extremely wonderful author Dara Goldstein. I don't know if she's Goldstein or Goldstein. And I've had this book for a long time and cooked quite a few things from it. It is a wonderful book. The photography is amazing. The writing is amazing. Her scholarship is wonderful. And it's a bit about something called Thursday salt. And there's a recipe for Thursday salt in the book too, which I have made more than once. And it's a bread salt. So, you can get like herb salts where you mix herbs with salts. This is bread, which is charred rye bread mixed with salt. And we've made it with sourdough rye bread. We've also made it with bread left over from making rye kvass. And you char it like super, super black. And when it comes out of the oven, I did it in the cast iron pan in the oven. When it comes out of the oven, we literally open up the window and take the cast iron pan and stick it out the window straight away because the smoke coming off sets off the smoke alarm. I
want to be down on the street, see your window open
with this cast iron pan with black stuff. We're going to eat it, honest. And then you grind it all up.
I meant to do that.
It's really wonderful, and everyone loved it. So she gives a recipe for this black salt called Thursday salt, and then she talks about the context of it, which is what I'm going to read.
Can you say the region? Where is she writing about in Beyond the North Wind?
She's writing about Russia. And I don't think this is particular to a region. She does talk about it being multi-regional, I think, in this particular excerpt. But the book is, about Russia. I think it's got a subtitle on it. Let me go to the front page. Russia in Recipes and Law. So not only is there recipes in there, not only are there recipes in there, there's also, there's a wonderful bit about the stove, the traditional Russian stove, and I almost read that bit. But there's just wonderful, wonderful bits in it. So let me read you about Thursday salt, which is fascinating. The Thursday before Easter, Maunday Thursday, is known in Russia as Pure Thursday, a time for cleaning the house and cleansing the soul. A charred black salt called Thursday salt is ritually prepared beginning at midnight or first thing that morning to help purify body and soul for the coming year. Devout parishioners bring the salt to church when it's still in brick form to be blessed, along with the traditional Easter sweets of pashka and kulich. Only after the blessing is the salt broken up with the pestle. In earlier times, Thursday salt was revered enough to be stored in an ornately carved salt cellar kept not in the kitchen area, but in the beautiful corner. This nearly sacred space in every cottage consisted of a table where guests were seated with one or more icons positioned on a wooden shelf above so that they would be the first thing visitors saw when entering the cottage. Thursday salt was not so consecrated that it wasn't consumed, however. Traditionally, Russians put great store in this black salt, believing that it cured all sorts of ills, from fatigue to poor circulation to inflamed gums, thanks to the blessing and the chemical transformation of the charring process. Their centuries-old practice is interesting to contemplate in light of the current fashion for activated charcoal as a detoxifier. The salt was also tied up with superstition, even among religious peasants who safeguarded their homes by hiding, in the corner of a cottage, a bag with a pinch of salt that had been blessed by a priest. Superstition was part of the salt-making process as well. The rye salt mixture was shaped into a brick and placed in a birch bark shoe or wrapped in a thick linen cloth. This package was set directly on birch logs in the masonry stove, which was then fired. 7 was the number of logs believed to make the best salt, although in some villages the magical number was 6, 1 log set aside on each day of the 6 Sundays of the long Lenten fast to make Sunday firewood for the salt. By the time the logs burned down, the salt mixture had baked into a stone-like mass. Whether with 6 or 7 logs, the making of black salt represents a confluence of superstition and faith, with prayer enhancing the fire's magical properties. Superstitions aside, black salt can be made in several ways. The original method called for mixing salt with sediment from kvass, itself made from leftover bread, which ensured that no bit of bread went to waste. When kvass was no longer regularly made at home, Russians began using rye bread instead, moistening the bread with water before mixing it with the salt. Even more of a shortcut is the use of moistened rye flour, though salt made this way doesn't attain the complex flavour of other bread salts. The Kostroma region north of Moscow is said to have produced the most extraordinary Thursday salt thanks to the addition of chopped cabbage leaves. Russians in the far north added seaweed for iodine and flavour, while monks throughout Russia seasoned their salt mixture with herbs and spices before charring. Because the baking process concentrates minerals rather than creating ash, you can create different nutritional as well as flavour profiles. Think of black salt as an opportunity for creativity and use it as you would any other seasoned finishing salt. I like it not only Russian style with shaved frozen salmon, but also on any dish that asks for a burst of intensity, such as carpaccio or steamed or grilled vegetables. We've eaten it on everything, that black salt. Literally everything. It's
I did not realize I needed to have more food down here with me before we started this.
Yeah, well, that would be perfect
This
on those
is
eggs you
torture.
had, wouldn't it?
Oh, can you imagine? Also, how beautiful, because I'm sure it looks.
It does.
I mean, it is black, right? Because it's mixed
on an egg
charcoal,
yolk. It looks amazing. It looks like bits of charcoal.
Yeah, and I didn't know that they made it. Started on Maundy Thursday, and that is interesting too when you think about all the associations with ash and things like that with Easter, with the palm branches and everything. Wow, I didn't know that. It's these things, these food experiences are so religious. And I'm not just saying that because they took it for the priest to bless. I mean, that's the thing about ancestral food and agriculture and things. And, you know, the Bible is just stuffed with it's like an agricultural textbook almost. And these things all tie in together, these experiences and memories and the times and the places and things. Just striking me how connected it all is.
Yeah, I agree. And with family as well, with community and family and everyone together and just
right. And
Very beautiful.
It makes it all the more criminal when something that is I'll just use the word holiday tradition, becomes co-opted by a factory, and then they do it for you. And you knew what I was going. They do it for you. They sell it for you. And I think about, the visceral memory Gabe will have of, I'm assuming it's Rob, sticking the pan out the window. Yeah. And his association with that will be different than if you just pushed your cart through a store and chucked the salt into the cart and he never even knew what happened because he was, busy playing a game on his phone or whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's different.
Completely.
It's different.
Completely.
And that feels important.
Oh, this feels nice. This feels like we kind of come together with books today.
Wow. Yeah. Yes. There's so many good stories that you and I have encountered in the books. And then there's I made a food and literature thread in the Discord because I'm always running across these stories in books, and patrons are too. So we post our little passages that we find in there.
I'm really glad you do that, because you posted a while back, you posted something from Mary Barton about clap bread, which was an oat bread that was baked in the north of England. And I am just getting to that part of researching and writing for my oat book. And I'm contemplating how to kind of approach the kind of clap cake, clap bread, have a cake, all the same kind of thing, hard, thin bread. And I didn't know that it was mentioned in that literature. And just because you posted that on the Discord forum, I'm able to take that and help it kind of add to my research for my book, which is really helpful. Thank you.
I mean, there is a whole chunk in there about it. It wasn't a passing mention. It was like, it was given again this spiritual significance, when the old lady was carefully getting the pieces down and laying them out on the table for her guests to eat. And it was a whole ritual.
Yeah.
And that's another highly specific thing associated with memory, because the author specifically said how this woman, it's fiction, but the author was specifically saying how the woman was going through the memories in her mind of her childhood and how important it was to her association with where she grew up and her people and the type of people that ate this, and how it was sort of a little piece of her soul that she was putting out for her guests.
It just makes me think, that food used to be like that. The clap bread was made out of oats because oats were the cereal that grew there. There wasn't any other cereal necessarily, that's what grew when she was living there.
Right.
And so it is her place, it is her land, it is her community, it is her people, it is what she's doing in the
memories.
kitchen, it is everything to her. When I'm cooking meat that I get from Flavio, I feel this land. I've been to Flavio's farm and I know the lay of it. I know this land, and it is this land. It's what I'm cooking. It's on my table. And the loss of that when we're going to supermarkets and buying a packet food that we can put in the oven or dare I say it, microwave, with ingredients from all over the place. We don't know where it's come from. We don't know who's made it. We just, it's such a loss. Yeah. And like we talked about, the generations are going down and this sort of thing's becoming further away from our fingertips, and the generations to come who don't know any different will not know what they've lost. Like they'll feel that loss in their body, like we all feel losses in our bodies for the things that we should be doing as humans that make us human and make us an animal in that way, but they won't know what it is because they'll have no reference.
We try. Don't you think, Allison, remember when we did the comfort food episode and when you and I had like 3 calls before that to try and define comfort food? Yeah. And I think that is, tell me Sunday soup isn't a comfort food.
Oh, it is.
Like, I think we're trying to form those memories, but it's hard because the foods that we have to form the memories around aren't very life-giving, and the food themselves doesn't have much of a memory. It's only the experience of eating it when it was on sale or something. And I think it's right to be attached to food in a specific time and place. I think sometimes our tastes are disordered because of the culture that we might grow up in, depending on where you are in the world. So your association with Easter, for instance, might not be black salt. It might be like a store-bought treat that you are trying to get your body to not like anymore. But your body's trying so hard to have associations with foods because that's right.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. So shaping our loves again, I think that's one of the lifelong tasks of
indeed
coming back to your
and it works,
ancestral foods.
because my past is full of wanting those supermarket hits full of sugar and bad fats, and I was addicted to them, and I'm not anymore. I'm far, far, far away from that. And so it is a process of coming home, and it is doable. It is possible. It happens. It just needs a slow, step-by-step re-education and a reconnection with what's real and vital and nourishing in so many more ways than just the food.
And you're giving, you can't recreate an ancestral village a day or a lifetime even, but
we're trying.
You're giving Gabriel, you're trying. You're giving him these experiences and associations and these loves that you're helping him to shape. And I'm thinking about when I opened up our last crock of sauerkraut to put into jars, and Adelaide was standing at the table at this crock that's as tall as she is with a fork and forking it out and eating it. And she's 6. And I thought, as an adult, I had to learn to eat sauerkraut. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And I had to learn to love it.
And
she's a little kid. And she's like wolfing it down.
Babe was like that with sauerkraut.
And I'm trying to slow her down. Yeah.
He really is. He absolutely loves it.
Yeah, because they have those, the palate for it, for those sensations that we come in saying, oh, I don't like the sourness or something.
Yeah.
But their palate is tuned to that, which is appropriate.
I think we should probably stop. Well, no, actually, we should probably tell people to go to ancestralkitchenpodcast.com/ancestral stories and leave us your memories and stories of things you have been passed on to you or you've heard of and you would like us to look after for you, and let everyone know who you think might have something to share with us about what we're doing. Thank you.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you, Alison.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Until next time.
Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. We'd love to continue the conversation. Come find us on Instagram. Andrea's at Farm and Hearth and Alison's at ancestral_kitchen. Until next time, we both wish you much fun, exploration, and satisfaction in and out of the kitchen.